One of the reasons why I love reading Conservative Home so much is that you get these random Conservative MPs, sometimes MPs you've never even heard of, writing about the current state of their political party. And it gives you some very, very interesting insight because remember, they are never going to get this in like the Times or the Tory graph at all. The Conservative Home, they're more likely to give these, smaller MPs a shot to see how they do. How well does it do in the algorithm? Do they get a lot of engagement, etc.? Then maybe they get invited back again. But given the fact that you've just had the reshuffle, I had predicted you would see a lot of Red Wall Tory panic because obviously they've brought back David Cameron. And as we said, the ABCs of David Cameron do not work out well for a lot of these red Tories. A, because A is for austerity, and well, he's the architect of austerity, not really going to play well up north. And of course, B, well, he didn't really back Brexit and has never even then backed Brexit. What's he going to do as foreign minister? There's not a lot of people happy that David Cameron are back in the Conservative Party. And even more important, of course, is the Northern Research Group, a very somewhat influential group of Northern Red Wall conservatives who are panicking. And in this case, as we're going to hear, a lot of coping about how they are about to lose their seat in the next general election. And oh no, what can we do to stop this? So I always do love these things. And like I say, I do expect more and more as we get closer to the general election, we're going to see more of these stories. And then, oh my word, after the election, we are going to see so much cope from these conservative politicians, especially those in the Red Wall, who I tell you now are going to go on blast and are going to completely blast like other sections of the Tory party for the reasons for their loss. It's going to be magical. It's going to be absolutely magical. And to be honest, I cannot wait for it. So, as always, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page where you can, of course, help support the channel that way. There is the one-off donation link called the Buy Me Coffee link, where you can, buy me coffee. There is, of course, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, the Pony Club down below as well. So, as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel. And of course, it is Wednesday today. So do remember, if you are a Pony Club or a Patreon member, you will get access to the new video that we'll be putting up later. And like I say, if you do join that, you get access to all the other videos that we have made on that as well. So big amount of content for you now as well. So as always, let's crack on into this and enjoy ourselves as we feast upon this Northern Red Wall Tory, probably about to lose his seat. In which seat, which is his MPship now? Ah, yes, he's the MP for Carlisle. So, John Stevenson, the MP, wrote this. From the Northern perspective, last week's reshuffle fell well short of what was needed. Bon appetit, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to get very tasty. So, as the dust settles on the reshuffle, you wonder what the impact it had on the general consensus. After all, it is likely the last one before a general election, so we must assume that the appointments reflect the image that the Conservative Party wants to present to the British voters. Very, very true. But we've had reshuffles before and no general election. And of course, the likelihood is there could be a general election next year. We'll see what happens, but he is right in the fact that, this is the party that, Rishi Sunak wants to put forward, and you've got David Cameron. It's not a good look. But he continues, clearly, the removal of Suella Braverman and the return of David Cameron says something immediately about the government the Prime Minister wants to lead. The latter's return will be welcomed by many of the 2010 and 15 intake of MPs, who will recognise him as a winner, whatever the wing from the party. And there is no denying that he also brings experience and a certain gravitas back to government. Well, for now, remember, the Greensill lobbying scandal, one of the biggest lobbying scandals in British history, still ongoing. The likelihood that could be interesting for a few things for Cameron. And of course, what has Cameron been doing since 2016? He's been involved in a lot of lobbying. And what exactly is that going to come up and start causing problems? Something suspects that it probably will. Journalists are probably already digging, having a look, seeing what's going on. But yes, it will maybe not the easiest thing for Rishi Sunak to be able to do if, well, a lot of stuff coming out about David Cameron, especially in the Greensill stuff. Or should we say, if the Greensill scandal starts making it to the front pages again. So he continues. However, these individual appointments and personality changes rarely have a long-term impact. What really matters is policy. Yes, I've always said this. Policy matters. At least he recognizes that. So what really matters is policy, direction of channel, direction of travel, and of course, a general overall feeling of the impression about a governing party. And the fact is, from a Northern Conservative perspective, this reshuffle fell short. For years and years, the Labour Party took the north of England and indeed Scotland for granted. They presumed that come what may, the voters across the north would continue to return Labour MPs to Parliament, and for years, this was indeed the case. Mostly because, here's the thing, Labour MPs really did actually deliver for the north and Scotland as well. And many of these places, if you remember, after the initial Red Wall victory in 2019, many of these Red Wall Conservatives were saying, well, now we've got the MPs, the councils are next. You know, we're coming for you, local Labour councillors. It's time we're going to retake the North. And what happened? They failed to do that. They failed to do that in a spectacular fashion, even before Partygate. Even before Partygate, they failed to retake these councils. And that should tell you everything you need to know. That people were what really happened in 2019 was that people in the North gave Boris Johnson the chance and believed his rhetoric. What you've had since then is there has been no levelling up. There's been none of the promises fulfilled for the North. Why on earth should people in the North give you a chance again when you said, hey, trust us, we are going to fulfill for the North? You know, this time, really, honestly, truly, guys, we're going to fulfill for the North like we've never fulfilled before. And, you know, you'll vote Conservative for the rest of your life. That never happened. That never happened because you never fulfilled your promises. You never fulfilled on those ambitions. And the people in the North have paid very close attention to that. Very close attention indeed. And you look at all these 2019 intakes, every single one is pretty much losing their seat. Even Lee Anderson losing his seat. It does not look good for these guys, and they know it, and they are panicking because no one wants a one-term MP. You know, doesn't look really good on your CV if you're only really a one-term MP, and there are about to be a lot of one-term MPs up in the north. So, in contrast, but equally as unfortunate for the North, the Conservative Party ignored large parts of Northern England for years because they thought they would never win there. They believed that these Northern voters were uninterested and actively hostile to our policies and ideas. And yes, they were and still are open to your hostile to your policies and ideas. That has not changed. They believed Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson was that lightning rod. And if you wanted people to deliver, then you actually had to do things for them. But no Conservative politician ever did. Now, I've just seen he's going to actually mention George Osborne with the Northern Powerhouse. If Osborne and Cameron had followed through on the Northern Powerhouse, things might have been different. Things might have genuinely been different. I've said before, the Northern Powerhouse, if they had followed through on it and spent the money to do the Northern Powerhouse, things might have been different. Things might have been incredibly different voting wise had they followed through on that. Because, oh, look, you've had these Tories who've come along, they've actually fulfilled the promises, and they've improved the North. Holy moly, maybe we should give these guys a chance. But instead, you had Boris Johnson come along and say, oh my, you've been all left behind. And don't worry, guys, I am going to pick you up. I'm going to pick up the North and I'm going to take it with us, the rest of the UK. We're going to level you up. We're going to give you all these opportunities. And what happened? Never happened. Not only that, you've got the video of Rishi Sunak saying, I took money from those poor areas and gave it to the richer areas. How well do you think that's going to play in Carlisle? So, he continues. All this, of course, changed in the lead up to the 2015 elections. Firstly, an election. That's firstly at the election. Scotland almost completely rid itself of all Labour MPs. Secondly, George Osborne introduced the Northern Powerhouse concept, an idea which came with the implicit recognition that the North did actually matter. It was and had huge potential, that it had been ignored for just far too long. And these were conservative ideas that resonated and appealed to Northern voters. Except, again, you didn't really do that. Not only that, the Northern Powerhouse idea was actually stolen, ironically, from a left-wing think tank, the Fabian Society. But there you go. Oh dear. So then, when it was the Conservative Party who promised to finish Brexit and fully withdraw from the European Union, huge numbers of Northerners felt like their vote was finally being heard, and they expressed their wishes what they were finally being acted upon. They rewarded the Conservatives for this in 2019. Let's, of course, not forget that it wasn't just that. It was Boris Johnson and, of course, the promise for levelling up. It wasn't just Brexit. Whenever these people say, "Oh, it was just Brexit," we were promising, to quote, finish Brexit off. No, it was a lot of things. It was Boris. It was Brexit. It was levelling up, and people thought that Boris would fulfil, particularly the ones for levelling up, and that is the one that a lot of these Northern voters, especially if you go and talk to them, their area hasn't changed since 2019. It was just more Tory lies. In effect, Boris Johnson doing that has now even damaged even more further Tory future election chances. So, but anyway, he continues. But where are we now? The Labour Party are still as complicit and arrogant about the North as ever. No, they're not. They are and have talked a lot about economic activity, what they would want to do, the investments, the fact of reviving the steel industry. It would be, they have and constantly talked about the North and what they would do if they were in charge. So this idea that they have just, once again, quote, ignore the North. No, this has long been a Conservative talking point. If you look at any local Conservative councillor who's trying to run in a Labour area, this is the same thing they always deploy. Oh, Labour never listens. They never really pay attention to you. It's the same thing they always did. They did it in 2019 as well. And Conservative MPs did it all the time when they were running. It's just finally, for once, oh my word, this actually worked. So they were arrogant about the North as ever. They still take the North for granted, offering very little and nothing to the Northern voter, yet nonetheless expecting their vote. In contrast, the Conservatives had an opportunity to build on what was already being achieved, to offer an enhanced package for policies for the forthcoming election. And they haven't delivered that at all. They didn't even deliver on the first package of policies. So why are people going to believe you that you're going to continue on those package of policies when you didn't even fulfill on the first ones? But are we up to this challenge, he asks. There is a danger that we are now reverting to what one might be terming the Southern Comfort strategy. Once again, believing the North doesn't want to hear us. Well, if you look at the polls, That is the case. And what is, again, funny is that these guys are panicking. They are like, the Conservatives are like, right, we've got to abandon the North and we've got to sort of focus on our southern seats because we've seen the polls. We know you guys are not going to do very well. We're sorry about that. But hey, you're on your own. We're going to focus on these southern seats and at least make sure we retain those, because if we lose those, well, that's going to be a bit of a problem. And of course, as we said, they're panicking right now. So he continues. We do not need to have the either or strategy, the blue wall versus red wall. We need to recognize that we can appeal to both, and we have specific ideas that will appeal to the North without undermining our colleagues in the South. Indeed, unlocking the potential of the North solves a lot of the blue wall problems. The overcharged economy of London is the driver of house building services. And of course, infrastructure pressure in the south of England. The North is the answer to these challenges. This is exactly what you heard, by the way, from the Northern Powerhouse. And of course, it's exactly what you heard from the Levelling Up from Boris Johnson. Like I say, these ideas are not new. In that if you invest in the UK economy, where's all the areas that need the investment? Well, guess what? It's in the North. You invest in the North, you solve a lot of problems for the UK. But of course, the Conservatives have not done that. Oh. So I know, obviously, Conservatives from other parts of the UK will ask, why such a focus on the North? What about us? To which the answer has to be that yes, it is certainly true that different parts of the country need particular attention. Again, that is true. You do need to focus on certain parts of the country when they need attention. Again, it's not rocket science, but the Tories haven't done that. And the Conservative Party had better come up with some ideas for them. Again, getting spicy now. But it is not only the north of England that has population, industry, cities, and universities to be a true counterweight to London. It is one of the as one of the largest urban belts in Europe. The north is in a unique position to power up the rest of the country. This was always the concept of the Northern Powerhouse, to properly integrate the large strip of northern cities, and so to use it as an effect of an economic amalgamation to try and turbocharge the North, and, just as importantly, the national economy. So why didn't you do it? If you know, why have you not done this? You've had 13 years in power. You didn't even do in the initial Northern Powerhouse. And yet this guy should be shocked why his voters in Carlisle are turning their backs on him. Yeah, you talk the talk, but you haven't delivered. So we're not going to vote for you this time. So with the North brought into it and the Conservative Party brought into it, but while again the North did buy into it, but the Conservative Party didn't buy into it. That's a bit of a lie. The Conservative did not buy into the Northern Powerhouse at all. But while there are still many ministers who passionately care about the North and about levelling up these areas, there are still concerning signs that the party is drifting away from its commitments and obligations to this important and unique part of the world. So this reshuffle in case isn't case in point. We have a minister for London, but where on earth is the minister for the North? Exactly. Yeah, if they cared as much as you apparently say they do, where is the minister for the North? I find it astonishing that this position has not been established. If the government is to believe its own rhetoric about unlocking the potential of the North, such a position would be a requisite. Because they didn't care, my friend. They didn't care. Are you only just discovering this now that the Tory party does not care about the North? Instead, the closest we have is a department for levelling up, headed up by Michael Gove. And for me, he's one of the best, most capable politicians of our generations. But he represents a seat in Surrey. Okay, so it's not a northerner occupying that seat. Fair enough. but he hasn't delivered. He hasn't delivered. I mean, the leveling up white paper, the first two chapters, and we always say this, the first two chapters were absolutely unbelievable. Um, Pointing out all the problems that the North was facing, all the stuff that needed, all the amount of money and the investment that it needed. And then you got to the third sector where the Treasury would come in, and of course, Rishi Sunak barely gave it any money. Barely gave it any money. And Gove did not go to bat for that report afterwards. He did not start calling out Rishi Sunak, telling the Treasury you need to give it more money, etc. He didn't go to Boris Johnson saying, "Hey, Rishi, the North needs more money. Rishi ain't giving you the money to level up the North. It's pathetic the amount of money that he gave is given to this." No, he didn't. No Northern MPs, even this guy, did not go to bat about that leveling up white paper. So when they say that, oh, we could have fixed the problems in the North, they could have. They could have. But when given the opportunity, when given the advantage to be this, Northern champion, this Northern speaker, not a single one of them did. And it was left, ironically, to the MPs from Labour in the North to speak up against the report. Tells you everything about this. So he continues. I do not think that the North has been given up on by the Conservative Party. It absolutely has been given up at this point, my friend. Like I say, abandon all hope, and leave while you can. But you continue. But I do think that the Northern voters are desperately waiting for a reason to vote for us again. On what? On what? On what are you going to do? The magic that Boris Johnson brought of combining Brexit and leveling up, never going to happen again. That was a once in a lifetime opportunity you had, and it is gone. It's gone forever. The fact that you have Rishi Sunak and that video, like I say, if I was in Labour HQ, I would be making sure that video gets played on permanent loop, repeat everywhere you go. And every single Conservative Northern MP should have to ask that question. Why did you not stand up for Rishi Sunak when he took money from North poor areas and gave it to the more affluent ones? Why did you not stand up for us then? That should be the question directed to every single Conservative Northern MP, because not one of them stood for the North when they claim, oh, we're all about standing for the North. Not a single one stood for them. And that, my friends, take the Game of Thrones saying for this, the North should remember. But again, he says that it's not too late. With expanded devolution deals, a proper industrial strategy, a linked-up infrastructure investment, and yes, a Northern Powerhouse 2.0, again, never going to happen, the party can once again appeal to these voters. What a shame that the reshuffle does not seem to point in this direction. A stronger North means a stronger Britain. A stronger Northern Conservative agenda would mean a stronger Conservative Britain. I am surprised that the Labour Party continue to take the North for granted. Again, they don't, because they talk about the UK as a whole. Could they focus on the North? Absolutely. But at this point in time, all of the UK is in such a bad, tacking because of the 13, 14 years of Conservative rule at this point. Every single part of the UK desperately needs this, But hey, that was only your party in charge of that. But if the Conservatives are going to give up on appealing to the North as well, it would just be as bad for the Conservative Party, and it would be a tragedy for the whole country. Well, sorry, John, but the Conservatives gave up almost a second. Almost immediately, they gave up on the idea of leveling up and any ideas of this. HS2, the biggest rail infrastructure project the UK had ever seen would have been absolutely amazing, would have paid for itself, as we've seen in Spain, as we saw in Japan, with them building their versions of this. But oh no, we can't build it. I'll say it again, I'll say it all the time. The Conservatives do not care about the North. And people like this guy who think that, oh yes, the Conservative Party genuinely cares about the North. No, as he said himself, they're not even offering any policies that would appeal to people in the North because they don't care. They've seen the polls. They know that they're going to lose the North. So there's no point. And MPs like you, well, bye. They don't care. And I'm shocked that this guy thinks that they still do, or that there's somehow time that they're going to turn this around. Not in a month of Sundays. Not in a month of Sundays. But, of course, as always, thank you very much for watching. And, of course, we'll see you all next time.